Yeah, nah, you're dope. I heard you just was listening to this other artist music that I want to get on the podcast, right? And I you know how like Apple Music, you play the music and it just keeps going and keeps going. And
Yeah.
then I heard you, I was like, oh wait,
Oh
hold on.
shit, that's
I,
cool.
I stopped everything immediately and I was like,
Yo,
hold up.
I appreciate that for real. That's crazy. I didn't know that. Like I didn't. There we go. Okay, this is the first.
Ooh. Can you
All right. Yeah.
oh,
They're cool. So that's the first time somebody has told me like, "Oh, I found you through like just like an automated like shuffle type shit."
for
So
real?
yeah, so that's really cool. I didn't like. I was like, "Oh shit, that's cool." Fuck it. All right. All right.
Ah,
Who's the artist that you're trying to get on the podcast?
uh, that's another story.
Neither here nor there.
That's another story. um, so I'm ready when you are. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right, three, two, one. Hey yo, welcome back to another episode of the ArtsBlock podcast. I'm your host, Eric Curry III, and today we are here with somebody who I think can kind of take over and run this game that we call music and hip hop. The one, the only, we got money on the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Please give it up. Please give it up. Oh man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. No, thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be on the show for real.
Thank you. So I start every podcast asking the guests, how are you feeling today? You can give me a lot, you can give me a little. Like how are you feeling today?
Um, man, listen. I feel like I boom. To say a lot, but to say a little, I'm blessed. I woke up.
Right.
I'm breathing, I'm healthy, I'm happy, I'm blessed. And that's what I will focus on, despite everything else.
That's all you can really ask for.
You know what I'm saying?
That's
That's
all you can
all
really
you
ask for.
could. That's all you could do for sure. Like, and I feel like I don't know. That's been my headspace a lot recently. I think is really not even like going through motions or pushing through, but like really just this aspect of like, what can I look at as a positive in
Mm,
the day, or like in the week or whatever? Because I feel like I don't know, focusing on negatives is always just never gonna do you any good. Like I learned
right.
that real young. So I feel like that's really where I've been at. Like cool, I might be in my head, there might be a lot going on, but what's good about all this? Like what's the positives? And at the bare min, I'm blessed. So you feel me? Like at that, that's what I can say.
Hold on. I have a whole list of questions right here, but those might have to wait a little bit. So but what kind of got you to that state of mind, right? It takes a lot of people, it takes a long time for people to be like, oh snap, like I just have to think about it and I'm blessed. Like compared, like my situation could be way worse, but I'm blessed. Like, so what kind of got you to that point?
Like let me like start off by saying like I'm definitely in a place of privilege to say that.
Mm,
I feel like that's real important to acknowledge. I feel like there's a lot of people going through a lot of certain shit in this world that it's like, yo, you really can't look at no bright side because it's like it really don't seem like there is one.
right.
As a person who's lived a long time of my life like that, like I'm not, like I'm not gonna tell you shit because it's like I know how that be, and I knew how people was trying to tell me you got to look at the positives, and they sounded like bozos to me. So like
Because what
that's
does that
not
mean for real?
because it's really like what does it mean for real, but it means something different to everybody. I think that's the important thing about anything that has to do with like mental health, like self-love, like that journey of not even just loving yourself. Like
Mhm.
I think people rush to self-love. We got into a whole tangent so quick, but anyways.
Wait. No. Keep going. Keep rushing the
So
stuff.
I
Wait.
think people rush into self-love without understanding that the first like foundational thing is self-understanding. And if you don't know or understand yourself, you'll never then be able to love yourself.
That's a bar. Do you have that written down?
Nah, that's just off the dome, man. That's just how I speak for real. Like,
That's a bar.
nah, but it's facts though. That's my thing. Like, I feel like I did a lot of work to understand myself, and I feel like what I mean by I did a lot of work, I guess, again, that looks different for everybody. Like, but I did a lot of self-growth and self-understanding to be able to get to a point with myself where I was like, there's certain things about my life and my circumstances that I can control and things that I can't. So when I look at positives, I really just look at the shit I can control.
Right.
You know, and that's like, if I can change it, I'll change it. If I can't, I can't. And then that's when I get into like the root bare minimum things of like, you know, I'm blessed. Like I woke up happy. And I grew up with a mother who wasn't like super religious, but my mom, I would say, like, got religious in her later years of life.
Right.
So also like my teenage years of life. So I feel like with that, like, I'm not super religious. I'm more spiritual than I would say I'm religious, but I follow my faith enough to a point where it's like my mom also really ingrained that idea into me of like, yo, you woke up, right? Like you blessed, like for real, like you woke up, like you alive, you breathing, you could see, you could smell. Like I was like, yeah, she was like, you could taste, you good. Like I was like, yeah. She was like, okay, I'm not saying you don't. She told me, she was like, I'm not saying you don't got problems. Your problems is gonna be there, but you okay? You woke up, you good? I was like, yeah. She was like, then at bare minimum, at base, you're good. And I was like, all right, fair enough. And I was like, when you see it like that, I feel like I could really maneuver my days and like everything else better.
Man, this is probably the best way I've started a pod.
Woo! We love that. Yeah.
It's probably the best way I started a pod in a minute. I love it.
Now you definitely gonna get, like, with me, bro, I talk a lot, respectfully. So I feel like you're gonna get a lot with me.
As much as you want to. I love it already. This is gonna be great.
It's gonna be a good one. I know.
I want to start off right asking, like, so when you first started rapping, when you first started getting the love of music, right? A lot of people start things, and sometimes you're not good when you first start out at certain tasks, right? Sometimes you have to work and work and work. But when it came to music and for you, right, did it just was it just something that happened? Like, oh no, I started rapping and I was like that, or was something like, I like doing it, but I'm trash right now, but I'm going to get better? Was it like one of those things?
So for me, I would say, okay, so I really started made my first song type situation probably 2018. I really started putting music out though, like really putting projects and like anything really out like that. 2020. And I feel like in that 2-year gap, like I was just playing around with shit, but I wasn't really like dedicated to doing music like that.
Right.
When I started in 2018, like, no, I was not good. Like it was cool. Like I'll listen to it back now and it's like the bars was never the problem. Like my lyricism was never a problem to me for a few reasons. Me personally. One, I grew up on battle rap. Like I really like battle rap. So battle rap is so like concise with its lyricism that it's like certain things are real direct and certain things are real, oh wait, and it really goes over people's heads. I really like that about
not to cut you off, but who's your favorite battle rapper?
I don't know if I have a favorite. I have a few though that like I really liked growing up, and I just really like some of the, like, I'll go back to the highlights even now. Like I really like Chess when he don't choke.
I love Chess.
When he don't choke up, bro, I really like Chess. Like Chess. But when he choke, he really stresses me out, bro. I really like the enthusiasm and like energy of Tay Rock, like a lot, like, and just how he like, my brother really liked Arsenal. So I grew up like watching Ars, like, like word. So those, like, just to name a few, and it's like, so that's one, but two, and more importantly, is that I'm originally a poet. Like I've been a poet for 11 years now. Like started, performed, won a contest, like actually been doing this shit since like the 6th, 7th grade.
Right.
And so I feel like because of that, again, lyricism was never a thing for me, a problem, I would say. I was always writing poems. And then I think for me, it was really just the idea of a flow and the idea of a cadence to a beat. I've been doing performances, doing spoken word for, 6, 7 years before I started doing the music. So it was normal for me to get on a stage in front of 20 people, 200 people, 2,000 people. Like I've done performances for people all around. But the point was that getting it to that idea of like a cadence and a flow was a little uncomfortable for me. But I grew up loving hip hop. So it wasn't like, it was a no-brainer to me that eventually the poetry would just transcend into rap, but I still do both, and I just kind of keep them both as like separate crafts that are like both part of me though.
No, I feel you.
Yeah.
So what made you start releasing music in the height of the pandemic? Like that seems like a scary move since you couldn't really perform at shows. Well, not couldn't really, you couldn't period perform at do shows or anything like that. So
It's funny because like performing, I guess the music wasn't like a big thought in my head when I started dropping. For me, it was really just making music and dropping. I feel like I had a lot of people around me who like knew I wanted to make music or like knew I had songs in the tuck, and they was just like, so what's up, bro? Like you've been saying you're gonna drop music for a minute. Like I have had songs recorded for months before like the pandemic, and it just shit just was not dropping. I was dropping like little freestyles on IG, like type shit. And like that was that. I had like 2-3 songs on SoundCloud. Like that was pretty much it.
right.
But then I dropped it August 2020, and that's when I dropped it the day I drove back upstate for my like first day for like senior year of college. I went to Syracuse University.
Yeah.
So I drove up there and I dropped it right before the drive because I knew I wouldn't be on my phone the whole drive. So I was like, I dropped it, and that was my first thing to ever drop, like my first 3-pack. And I was on streaming, it was on everything. I said, cool. And that was that. And I was just like, I think for me, it was just a matter of like, it was just a big step of, okay, you've been talking about dropping music for almost a year now. You have songs. Are you going to release them? And I did. I dropped a promo video. Like I did nice little baseline promo things for that project. But that was really it for me. It was just a matter of I just wanted to drop the music. I didn't really care about performing. I've only really been performing my music since February of this year.
Right.
So I've only been performing. Yeah, I've only been performing my music.
Hold on. February of this year. Well, I guess that's like when things like started opening. So I guess that's like when you just had like the chance to. But dang.
So it's like all the things you've seen, like if you went through my Instagram or anything like that, like any of
for
the
sure.
content, like all the content you've seen from performances has been February to now. Yeah, so it's been really like, pedal to the metal, old ass, no breaks. Like that's what I've been on really. And I love that. Like that's been real comforting to me, I guess. In a way, it kind of feeds my ego, even though I don't like saying that. It feeds my ego, not in the fact that I'm getting performances, in the fact that like I'm capable, again, blessed and thankful to like, be capable to like do all the things that I'm doing like all the time.
Nah, for sure. So February of 2022, you say you started like performing your songs, right? And at that point, your run of EPs, Traffic, Clover, and Sinister, they were all out. So creating a set list of those 3 EPs, how is that? Like, what do you do? Like, what do you?
It's so interesting even to now, because it's like I purposely dropped the 3-packs because they're all different vibes. Like they're all different vibes from each other, and that's why I dropped them like that. And then I had also, by the time February dropped, I had also dropped my singles, Trisha and 3am on Maryland. Yeah. So I feel like Trisha and 3am on Maryland were good ways to segue into certain things. And I really like that. I feel like 3am on Maryland got me a lot of traction with people. Like that's the song that made a lot of people realize who I was. Like, and like, oh, okay, cool. And really made them start looking at me. So I feel like 3am on Maryland was like a no-brainer to start or close my sets for a while.
Right.
And then in the middle, I would just kind of like navigate the vibe of the event I'm doing, like the crowd, if I knew like the crowd before or didn't. And sometimes I'd be like, it was really just how I'm feeling. Like if it was, for example, I did a lot of like art showcases where I knew it was a lot of different vibes. I'd make my set list a lot of different things. Like I'd start with like 3am and then just casually transition. But I've had certain sets where like homies have come up to me like, yo, that was like a really good placement of the songs. And it really depends on set list time. Like sometimes I get a 10-minute set, sometimes I get a 35-minute set, and sometimes you get a nice cool 2015. I think 2015 is a beautiful sweet spot.
It is,
especially for like showcases or like things with multiple people, because then you're like, okay, I'm not just here giving people 1-2 songs. But after your third song, people start tapping out a little bit.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not keeping them in. And in showcases, especially, like, that's just how it goes. So I think 15, 20 is a nice sweet spot, because 15, you could really do 3 songs and just chat to the crowd in between and shit.
That's
Make
fact.
up the nice 15. And it's cool. And with me, if anybody's ever come to a Atmoney show, it's certified, it's sanctioned, I'm gonna start a set with an acapella. So I'll always take a few minutes just to do a little, a nice little raw acapella, because that's my shit, from the poetry, from the spoken word, like, especially when it transitioned to rap. And I just started writing. I started writing with a flow at that point, and I was always doing that because of the spoken word, but now I was doing it with rap lyrics. And so when I so that's how I start all my sets now, because that's like my OG craft. And I always shout out my homie Des the Problem, one of the best like rappers I met while doing this music thing, while doing like, all this. She inspired me to do that. Like, I saw her do it once at that show in February that started my performing career. She did her set. She started her set with acapella. I looked at her. I said, "Yo, Des, I'm gonna take a page out of your book." She said, "Feel free." And like, that's just how me and her work. Like, we're very big inspirations, like, to bounce off one another. And I credit her all the time, because I'm like, yo, like, I probably wouldn't have, like, I would have maybe, but I wouldn't have started doing that had I not seen her do it and been like, yeah, bro, I'm a poet. Like, that's my thing. Like, that's why I started this. Why am I not doing that?
Right.
Yeah.
So getting deeper into the music, right? Based off of where you were then and where you are now, out of your 3 packs, which one is your favorite?
Sinister.
Oof.
Yeah.
Not Traffic. I thought you would be like, oh, Traffic. Because you know how most artists be like, oh, that's my baby.
That's my baby. I feel like I got over Traffic very quickly, because like I think I had sat on it way too long. So by the time I dropped Traffic, like, I already knew Traffic like the back of my hand. But I do that with all my projects. I love Traffic, but it also makes me cringe a little. Like, I'll listen to it and I'll be like, wow, like, I really didn't know my own voice yet. But that's beautiful to me. Like, it's a little cringy to me, but it's because it's me. Right. But it's beautiful because it's like, wow, like, listening to that and then listening to like the new stuff I have that's gonna come out is like, okay, word, like, there's a person who's taken the last year to really just, like, I guess, learn their sound a little more, figure that out. But that's my thing. Like, I never wanted to have sound. Like, I think 3 a.m. on Maryland kind of hindered that for me, because I feel like then everybody associated me with this like hard, gritty New York sound, and I'm okay with that, because that's how I am. That's how I sound. That's pockets I'm comfortable in. Right. But I did the 3 packs to show people, like, yo, I could give you bars, I could give you some nice little vulnerable melodies, and then I could give you some eerie, like, leaning on rock rap type shit. Yeah. And you could get, the little drill essence with Trisha. You could get the gritty New York with like 3 a.m. Like, you got the house music with 12 Disciples. Like, that's my thing. I'm well-rounded as an individual. I never wanted to be one type of artist. I wanted to show people, like, yo, I could do, not even I could do, I like to do all these things. I want to do all these sounds, because why the fuck not? It's my music. Like, who really gonna stop me? Honestly, as long as I'm independent, I'm gonna do what I want. I think that that's something people should live by, because it's like, especially, it really depends on your motive though. Like, your motive is to like really like skyrocket on some industry things, then you got a different formula you got to follow, but that's your business. Like, it's a whole different thing.
So would you say, what is that? What is your motive? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to get to?
Honestly, like, I feel like this is probably going to change within the next year or two. Like, I think I'm an ever-changing, ever-growing person, but I feel like right now where I stand is I want a cult following. Like, that's how I feel like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Like, I was having this conversation with one of my homies yesterday, and I really thought about it. I was like, yo, some of my favorite artists are not people who have like club bangers or radio hits, but they're some of my favorite artists. Like, Earl Sweatshirt is one of my favorite artists. Yeah. I'll never hear an Earl Sweatshirt song in the club unless niggas is remixing East in like some EDM type shit. Other than that, like, you know what I'm saying? And that man, aside from like fame or whatever, like, I really like his following. Like, that to me is like a cult kind of following, you know? Got you. I think Tyler's also similar, and Tyler's one of those people to me that's super inspirational, because you really never made songs that was supposed to blow in that sense, in the mainstream or radio sense, and fake. They did it, but they did because it's you. Like, you know what I'm saying? And I love that because Tyler and Earl, like obviously like the Odd Future shit, like those are people who really made it okay for like people to just make they type of music, like to be a little weird, to try things out. Like, and I really appreciate that because as a kid who grew up in that era, that made sense to me. Like to see that and be like, word, like I like this. Like y'all weird as hell and y'all really don't care about it. Like y'all, that's cool. So it's like I like that. So I feel like that's where I'm at right now, where it's like I'm interested in my like main goals as like an artist, I guess, on like the business side of it is like I want to expand to other cities. Like I want to do groundwork of getting my music to other cities. Like I want to do this, I want to do that. But like, I don't know, my music, my art, like in a way has always touched people in the way it needs to. You know what I'm saying? Like not in the way I like. I don't really care about what I want. And at the end of the day, because it's like, I feel like intention and then like actual perception of something is two different things. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like I can intend the music to do one thing, but people are might perceive it a whole different way.
Right.
I leave that fully up to like people. I make the music. People were gonna take it in and consume it how they wish to. I feel like right now where I'm at is like, yo, I'm really just having fun with it. Like I'm really enjoying the process of like making music, trying things out. Like I told you, I just started working in a studio a few weeks ago. So it's like now I have the access of being somewhere where I could really just actively try things out if I want to. So I really like that. That's where I'm at. Like I'm reminding myself, like, yo, I know you want to get somewhere. I know you want to get a little notoriety. You want to get a little like whatever. But why are you doing this shit, bro? Because you love to do this. So just continue loving to do it and do it in the way that makes you continue to love it. And that's like what I have to remind myself all the time.
But what does that insist of? Like doing it to make you continue to love it. Like what is that? Like does that mean try different things? Does that mean get as creative as possible? Like because I hear people say that a lot. Like, oh, I want to keep doing things until so I can keep loving it. But like, what does that mean? Like I tend to say like rappers, like I feel like hear like rappers like, oh, rappers retire. I feel like rappers can't retire because like you love it too much. If you have a passion for something, you can't retire from it.
I mean, respectfully, like some old head should really stop rapping, but like that's a whole different like story, like and trajectory. But point is that, and that's the person that was like, I give my respect to OGs. But anyways, I feel like for me, what I mean by that is like doing it so that I could keep loving it is like doing it in ways where I never have to look at it like it's taking something from me. Like I never want to feel like doing the music is taking not even like time from my life or nothing like that, because I'll never see that as like a waste of time, but as like seeing it as something that's hindering on me in any way. Like if it ever does, if I'm ever like wearing myself out or burning myself out or doing too much for the sake of my art, like that's when I know I need to take a step back, because now I'm doing it because I feel like I'm obligated to and not because I love it. And it's like, being that my art has really saved me from a lot of things in life, like I owe it the respect for it to continue to be something I love and not something I feel forced to do or something I feel like, you know, I should put certain strictnesses on. No, like it should be so free. It should be so flow like because it's mine. It's something that's fully in my control. And I gotta always remember that. Like it's my art, it's my creativity. If it's in my control, like that's on me. Like I make my own boundaries with that. There's nobody else to make that for me, especially again, as I said, as an independent artist. When you're under a label and you're dealing with that shit, that's a whole other world.
Yeah,
that's that's different about it. But like I said, as long as I can control those aspects of my creativity and my artistry, I will. If at one point, you know, tables turn and I can't, well, maybe I'll try it out and let them, you know, take the ropes. But that's not right now. That's not where I'm at, and that's not what I'm doing. So it's like I'm gonna control it as much as I can and do it in a way that, again, I can continue to keep loving it.
Nah, got you. So I'm actually glad you said that, because that's gonna bring me to your podcast. And you have this thing clip pinned. Oh, I don't know why I can't speak, but you have this post pinned on your Instagram, and there's 3 different slides of you talking on your podcast, and one of them you say that you have to be passionate about something.
So that actually wasn't my podcast. That was my friend's podcast.
That's your friend's podcast.
Yeah, that was my friend Richie Price's podcast, Key Convos. But yeah, I did say that. You have a question about that?
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't actually
So when did you realize that you had that passion for poetry, for music, for podcasting? When did you realize that you had when did you realize you had this passion for entertainment?
I would say I would say around middle school, like when I started the poetry, because it just became something that again saved me from a lot, and it just put me in a position to realize like, yo, this is not only something I'm good at, like it's something I like to do. Like you wouldn't think I'm bad with my words because I talk a lot, but like sometimes I really am, and because of that, like I feel like writing has helped me with a lot of things. It's helped me express my own emotions. It's helped me because when I write, I never have to, especially my music or my poetry, like I never have to write to somebody.
Right.
Like I can just write, and it could be as general or as specific as I want it to be, and I never have to worry about how somebody's going to receive it because I wrote it for me. Like I wrote it just to be written or to be said, but I don't necessarily have to care about how somebody's going to perceive it. Unlike a conversation where I'm talking to somebody, I got to really think like, how are you about to perceive the words that come out of my mouth? Like, and that's a whole other thing and layer of situation. Yeah, nah.
Right.
So I feel like I realized the passion real young, and it just kept going from there. Like it never stopped. Right.
And that's a blessing because I'm fortunate enough to figure out my passions real young as well. But to that credit though, I have to also put credit into my parents for just letting me go and explore. But one thing that one thing I was looking one thing I always think about like with my parents, because my parents are creatives and they're both are musicians as well. They both play drums. And my mom always talks about how like sometimes your passion won't pay your bills. And sometimes like sometimes you like her being a single mother. She had me when she was 21, her being a single mother, her being a new mom, and her still trying to chase her dreams. It's kind of like what, like at that some point my grandma was looking at her like, what are you doing? And she was like, I don't know.
Yeah. At some point, like the responsibility takes over and you're in a position where it's like, if your things are not working out or taking off, like, yeah, the bill situation comes into play. But I don't know, with that goes back to that clip that I was talking about. Like, I stand to this very strong right now, again, as a person who's coming from a place of privilege.
Right.
I'm not in a situation even like similar to that or similar to some other people I know where it's like, you got to do what you got to do. But I got people who are very concerned with finances like right now around me in my life. And it's like, that's, I understand that.
Right.
But these are people who are also at the same time not really passionate about shit. So when you put those two things together, you realize like, okay, listen, like as a person who my passions may not pay me $1 or a dime just yet, like I know that if I had nothing else in this world and I had my passions, at least I wouldn't feel like my world is going to shambles. I might be broke. I might be struggling to pay my bills. My light might get shut off. But
you're working towards something.
But at the end of the day, like mentally, like I got some kind of passion about something that's like physically, like or mentally for real, getting me through something. Like just getting me through my days. Like I'm not broke and real empty-headed. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you're not even like empty-headed, but broken. Like at the same time, all I can stress about is that like, nah, I could be broke and stressed about like the next tape I gotta drop and figure out how, like, so it's like my head could be occupied with so much. And for some people, especially for some older people that are around us that raised us, that's a pipe dream, bro. And we chase some dreams, and it's like, that's cool. That's cool for them to see it that way. Like, that's really beyond me. Like, again, people's perceptions of like how I move or how I like operate or that's so beyond me. I cannot control how people think or see the moves I'm making. Like, I know I'm making moves for my betterment. Like, again, if in 3, 4, 5 years, I'm still in the same place with the music and I'm still making the music, like, that's my business, bro. Like, as long as my passion is not like, again, coming at the expense of me like losing shit, like, again, unless that's where you want to go with it, it's really up to people, bro. Like, I've seen people throw everything away just to dive into the passion. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've seen people throw it all away, like, give up everything, like everything solid or somewhat solid in front of them. Like, bro, you know how many people I know dropped out of school to pursue art? Like, and I
Yeah.
respect them for it, bro. I didn't. And like, it wasn't really even a thought for me to do because I wanted to go to school and I wanted to get my degree. Like, that was just me.
Right.
But like, that's the thing, bro. Like, so many, it's not uncommon. Like, I know so many people that dropped out of school to pursue art. I know a lot of people that like literally have moved to new cities, like up and left everything here, moved somewhere new to start something, like to just chase their dream. And yo, if that's what you want to do for it, that's what you want to do for it. You feel me? Like, everything comes at a different cost and price for somebody.
Right.
But there are people who be like, oh no, you don't gotta do shit. The formula is not the same for everybody. It never will be.
Right. So let's get into your podcast. What is your podcast? What is it about? What do y'all talk about on there? What do y'all be doing? I saw some clips on there, and it looks entertaining.
The lingo, yeah. Me and my co-host Omari, our podcast is a chameleon podcast. We talk about everything, but like, I feel like for the good, like main gist and meat of it, we interview people as well. But we interview people from like all different types of creative backgrounds. We've had chefs, we've had fashion designers, we've had, like music artists, we've had just people from all walks of life. We've had stylists, like people coming in, and we just really talk to them about what's driving their art. What I like about our podcast is that every episode takes a format of its own. Like, the only thing that's really consistent about our podcast is our intro and our outro. And everything in the middle, like, you get some questions that are similar, but we really let our guests take it where they want to go. Every time somebody comes on set, I look at them and I'm like, yo, this is your episode. If you want to start talking about the most rich, that's where we going to talk about. We have questions, but if we don't get to them, that's fine with us. Like, we're very go with the flow about the podcast, and I love that. It really gives life to each episode. You really get you get more of the guest than you do of us at certain times, and I love that. And sometimes you really get a lot of us because the guest might not give you much. Like, you know how that go. Like,
yeah, not for sure.
You might get a guest that just might not. That gives you a very blanket answer, and you're kind of
for sure.
So, and then you gotta I know what that's like. So it really depends, but that's really what the podcast is. It's interviews. Sometimes it's just duo episodes where it's just me and him just chatting about shit. Like, when we have episodes like that, we're usually just chatting about like the state of what's going on right now in hip hop and pop culture. Like, that's really what we tap in on. But my favorite thing about our show is how we end it, is that we ask every guest, like, what's your favorite lingo from where you're from? And that's great because you catch a lot of people off guard. So they got to think about, damn, how much slang do I really use? That's one. And two, I love it when we get people that aren't from New York, because that's where me and him are from.
Right.
So I like it when we get people that's not from here, or people that are a little older, people that are a little younger, because then you see like the generational gaps. But like, we've had homies from Boston, we've had homies from like West Coast, we've had homies who've spent time in Miami. So we've gotten lingo from different places, and I love that. Like, it really shows you just how regional like that shit is, and like,
word.
Shit that makes sense somewhere else is literally the dumbest shit ever here. Like, and vice versa. So it's like,
for real.
But yeah.
Yeah.
The podcast has been a beautiful addition, to the creative field of my life, because I was a radio DJ for about a year, and then the radio show that I had at college turned into our podcast.
Gotcha.
Our podcast used to be just a radio show. And then we went on streaming, made it a podcast, and now we're about to kick off season 7.
Hey,
so we're like real life putting in work. So I really I like what we do. It's done a lot. It's provided a great platform for people, including ourselves.
Season 7, congratulations. That's nothing to underestimate. That's nothing to look down upon. That's a huge deal.
Thank you. Every time I say that, somebody's like 7, and I'm like, yeah, bro, 7.
And if anybody that doesn't look and be like 7, they don't know how hard this is for real.
Don't know, like, they don't know at all, for sure.
Nah, for real. So you're in the studio. You say you got some things cooking up. What's some things you got cooking up, coming up for the people, man? Let us know.
So I guess this is like somewhat an exclusive, but yeah, I got my first official like mixtape dropping, most likely early November. I'm very excited. Yeah, it's gonna be really great. It's gonna be around like 10 tracks.
Okay.
I think it's nice because 10 tracks is not too much. And I feel like it pivots at such like that. I love the album the tape, because it pivots at such a point that like the last couple songs make you want more, but you're not gonna get no more. So it's like I really like that. I like how it's coming together. I feel like it's been a beautiful process. It's fake been like a year in the making at this point. So I'm very it's just been a lot of moving parts and shit. So I'm really happy that that's coming to close and I'm finally like gonna be ready to drop that for everybody.
Right. Yeah. So Money, we loved having you on the podcast. This was dope. But before you get off, we have to finish this off with your dead or alive. Now, for everybody who's watching the podcast, hello, I'm your host, Eric Curry III. If this is your first time watching the ArtsBlock podcast, hello. If this is your last time watching the ArtsBlock podcast, well, goodbye. But dead or alive is a segment on the podcast where the artist on the podcast gets to choose people that they would like to work with that is dead or alive. Now, you can choose 100 artists or you can choose one artist. Please don't choose 100 artists because I still have to edit this podcast. But yes, dead or alive is on you. Go ahead.
Okay, let me start with a couple rappers and then let me go a couple producers. How about that? Okay. Big L.
Okay. Oof. I don't think we ever got a Big L on it.
Let's start off the gate. Big L. Missy Elliott.
Okay.
Lil' Kim. Oof. I'm also thinking about like my musical style and like what would work. That's why I'm like, okay. Kendrick. Definitely. I think that would be really dope. I listen to a lot of artists. That's why I'm like really trying to, I'm really trying to rack my head top right now. Try to figure this out.
This is the hardest part of the podcast.
Yeah, fake. I feel like my guests right now. I really feel like my guests, like Dave. I feel like I would work with like Ola Griselda, like all of them, like Conway, Benny, Westside, Armani, Rome, like all of them. Yeah, like definitely. I feel like I'll leave it at that for now. There's a lot more for sure, but in terms of like, those are just like a couple key like critical people. In terms of producers, like I would love to work with Alchemist. I love to work with Timbaland. I love to work with Conductor. I think he does crazy shit on like the Griselda projects all the time. Metro.
Not
All Heroes Wear Capes is one of my favorite projects because it's so cohesive and I love that project. And those are, and I would really work with like Primo 100%, Static Selecta. Speaking of Static Selecta, I definitely work with Joey 100%. That's like top tier critical, like gotta happen, like type shit. But yeah, like those are just a couple off the top of my head. I feel like that I would definitely say those are people I would love to work with. The essence would just be perfect, bro.
The vibes will be immaculate.
Bro. Immaculate. That's all I can say.
Well, Money, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. We loved having you. And shout out to everybody else who's watched the ArtsBlock podcast. Thank you for watching. Again, I have been your host, Eric Curry III. If this is your first time watching, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Please make sure you check out everything Money's doing. It's going to be linked in every description and every box and thing. So check her out because she's dope. If you're not following me on Instagram, follow me at Eric Curry III. Follow the podcast at ArtsBlock Podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. If you're listening on Apple Music, make sure you give me Apple Podcast. Make sure you give me a 5-star and a review. If you're listening anywhere else, shout out to you. Remember that artists never die, and I'm going to see y'all when I see y'all, boys. Peace.